inclusive as possible. We wanna make sure that we ensure representation of Fresno County's diverse communities and sectors, and that all folks who want to be part of the process have an opportunity to share what their priorities are, right? And that the goal is to find commonality. What are the things that we do agree, right? And that ultimately we recognize that the final decision-making will rest with each governing body in the county. So we wanna make sure that we adhere to the current process, the current law. And this is really the framework about how we get to a measure. I know when folks mentioned it, is not the measure itself, right? The details about the percentages and what are the priorities, right? That is what will come out of this process. And the goal is that we're looking for agreement. What are the things that we do agree on, right? And how do we reach that agreement? And that this also helps to ensure that we build community buy-in at the outset to ensure that there's a success of renewal, right? And so by community being engaged through this iterative process, right, there isn't gonna be any surprises, right? Our least anticipation is that if we get this right, there isn't gonna be any surprises at the end about what makes it into the measure, what doesn't, and how do we decide, right? All of that will be clear up front. And we also recognize that there's other elements that we'll need to discuss that we didn't talk about necessarily in depth with the group of 10, which is around budget, right? How are we gonna pay for this? There's gonna be, as we get closer to actually having language, we'll need to have some polling, right? Because we also wanna make sure that ultimately what we put on the ballot is something that voters will support, right? And that there will be a next phase, which is around campaign development. So the framework that we're